Hi everyone, welcome to another video. So before I started filming about 15 minutes ago, I did put on some sunscreen. I used today the Espoir Tone Up sunscreen, and it's one of those Korean creams. It's like pink, so it's meant to like kind of neutralize the yellow undertones, make your face a little bit more neutral looking, and overall just kind of add a brightening effect. And the other thing I like about this sunscreen is that it doesn't have a sunscreen scent. It just kind of has a very it smells like Sika. It smells like that, and I kind of want to get the other versions of it so that if I ever want to use I don't ever want the brightening aspect, I can do that. The only problem with this that I've run into so far is that if I use two full fingers like you're supposed to, I look kind of ashy because that's just way too much tone up cream. So this is definitely something I would wear under makeup if I was just gonna be outside for very brief periods of time. If I needed to fully apply actual sunscreen, then I don't use this as an outdoor sunscreen. So yeah, my sunscreen's been on for a little bit and I really want to try using this Peach and Lily primer. It's the Skin Shield Blurring Primer Protect and Smooth. I got this during the Diamond Day, where if you spent 25 bucks you got this full size for free. So I went ahead and bought some things that had been on my wish list for a little bit. That was when I made the Bobbi Brown order. So I bought a little bit more than $25 worth of stuff, but that's alright. But yeah, I'm gonna try this. I don't really have any expectations. I really only got it because it was a diamond gift, and I have been really interested in Peach and Lily for quite some time. So I figured if I let the sunscreen sit for 15 to 20 minutes and then lightly tap on the primer, it should be alright. So I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm mostly concentrating it on the inner portion because it said it smooths. It doesn't feel drying or silicone-y though, so that's a good start. And then I'm gonna use the JACLYN under eye primer. By the way, I am going to have a YouTube poop-esque video about JACLYN's complexion line because it finally went half off on Morphe, so I wasted my money for science and I don't really have regrets. I wonder if I should have put this on underneath the primer. Probably. I'm amazed that with how messy I am with my application order that I haven't had my makeup pill yet. I'm super amazed that I haven't run into that yet. So my sponges are all dirty and I need to wash them, and some of them have turned, I don't recall using blue product, so I wonder if this one is moldy. So I'm gonna give those a deep clean, but in the meantime, somebody on Reddit was selling two foundations for $10 each, which is nice, and one of them is this Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation. So now I don't have control over the shade, so it's in shade 2 Cool Fair, which good thing I used my tone up cream. So I'm gonna see how this ends up looking on me. I have a suspicion it's going to be, I don't think the undertone will be as big of a problem as the fact that it's going to probably be a little bit dark on me today. I just wanted to try it for science, and I can also mix this in with foundations that are too light, namely the Givenchy one. The coolness can kind of neutralize it while also making it darker. So I bought this more as the idea that I have a more matte foundation mixer. I also bought from this person the Surratt Dewdrops foundation, also for just $10, and it's in shade 2, which again is too dark for me, but again, I wanted to get it as a mixer, so now I have it and I'm honestly pretty happy with the fact that I got such a good deal. However, just using this foundation on its own, it's really actually not too bad. It's ever so slightly more tan than normal on me, but maybe I could do with not looking like a shadow, looking like a ghost once in a while. I definitely know people make memes about how other YouTubers, especially from Asia, tend to chronically not know their foundation match, and I would not blame anyone for lumping me in and memeing about me not knowing my foundation match, because I totally made such a mistake buying N80, but then I never actually got around to exchanging it because I just don't like wasting stuff, so now I'm just stuck with it for now, which is fine. So I'm just using a dough puff, which can kind of sometimes make the application, can change how the foundation applies, so I don't really ever make judgment calls on foundations if I've only used it once, which would be the case for this one. However, I will say, coming out of the jar, it's very thick. It feels a little bit on the heavy side, so that's why I'm putting on super thin layers, but it definitely does have really good coverage, and it's, quite mattifying. It feels very old school almost. I don't really feel like it's covering my pores as well as my other favored matte foundations do, but again, I think as a mixer, this will do a really good job. So that's kind of what my skin is looking like. It's been worse. And then I forgot to color correct, but I am going to go ahead and try color correcting over this foundation just because. So I'm using the Bobbi Brown one that I just most recently got. And it seems to work the best using my finger. trying not to disturb the foundation. And then I'm going to use the Pony concealer palette. I'll use these two shades here. I definitely feel like it performs better when you kind of use your finger to warm it up because it is rather stiff. So I've been trying it with my finger lately and I think I prefer this the most. However, I don't feel like the coverage is as good with a finger, so I'll probably go in with a second layer. I think my Clinique brush is in the wash or something, so I'm just going to use a random flat brush I have laying around. Okay, that's a little bit better covered. Yeah, my under eyes are they're not really doing it for me today. I probably messed up the base somewhere. Not to mention I'm using a brush I don't usually use. That doesn't help either, so. If the under eyes look kind of funny to you, just ignore it. I will ignore it as well. It could also just be though that this concealer palette is not going to end up being one of my favorites, which would suck, because I had really high hopes for it, but sometimes it do be that way. Okay, and then I'm going to use some setting spray just to make sure my face isn't too dried out. Yeah, so my face is a little bit on the darker side, especially compared to my neck, but I have a solution to that. I'm going to use my JACLYN Under Eye Quad. This is the perfect brightening palette for me. I usually mix the pink and the light shades together, and then I can really just kind of brighten and tidy up my inner part of my face with this. This is a little bit on the drying side, but it is summer, so it shouldn't be too bad, and I can always just use more setting spray. But right now I'm more interested in brightening up this area of my face. I'm still waiting for the Huda Cherry Blossom Powder to come back in stock so I can buy it. So I'm just gonna dust another very light layer of this again. And then I'm going to move on to primer and eyebrows. I'm using the NARS Smudgeproof Eyeshadow Base in Light. It is about noon, so I'm going to be wearing this until the evening. Make sure my makeup actually will last a little bit so it looks good for the next couple of hours. Okay, and so for brows, I'm going to use my NYX Micro Brow Pencil. I'm just trying to finish this. Can't seem to get the shape right lately, but I'll use a brow pen to try and tidy it up. And then I'll use my Glossier Brow Flick just to try and make things a little bit more neat. Okay, that'll have to do for now. Eyebrows are on. I need to think about what I want to do. I really wanted to use this single shadow from M Cosmetics. Found someone selling it for a pretty good deal. I'm going to take out my very fingerprinty Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 2. I don't have the 1 yet. Love to get my hands on it, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a look with these creams here, and then I'm going to use the M Cosmetics single shadow. I just want to do something simple and refreshing today. So I'm going to take the darker cream, and that's going to go all over my eyelid. I accidentally picked up too much, so I put too much on. So I'm going to switch to another brush. These cream shadows are super easy to work with, so if he ever came out with a palette of creams or cream singles, I would be first in line to try and pick them up because they are honestly really great. You can just see just how fast and easy that tends to go. Then I'm just going to put on another thinner second layer to push the darkness up higher. Really just make use of my lid space. That's really nice. The only kind of thing to keep in mind is that these will kind of blend out a little bit looking lighter than what it looks like in the pan. I do find that to be very common with cream shadows, where it's like it looks really dark in the pan, but once you actually have everything kind of smoothed out and blended to where you want it, it's going to look a little bit lighter. It's kind of like how acrylic paints are a different color wet versus dry, and if you're going to make a really big painting, going to take on a project where the color needs to be extremely specific, you do need to be aware of how your paint shifts as it dries and kind of account for that. It can be a very fun and tedious thing to have to learn. And then I'm going to take that same cream shade, and that's going to go up on the lower lash line. It's just such, I just like can't get enough of how good this formula is. So So that's how it's looking like so far. Really, really pretty. And it's a cream too, so any sort of rough spots I can also just kind of tap off with my finger. And you can see just applying it broadly without really having much caution, it just looks so good. Now, because it's cream, I am gonna have to set it with a matte later, which I will, but not before I put on Wish, which this shadow kind of feels like it's like a putty. It definitely reminds me of a Super Shock, but it's not as squishy. But it does feel putty-like, so I do wonder if it'll dry out eventually, but that's Wish. It's one of the shades that had been on my wish list for quite some time. Pun unintended. And yeah, this is so pretty. I was expecting these to be maybe more topper-like, but they are actually quite smooth and metallic, so I'm pleasantly surprised. This is my first time ever using one just because I don't want to pay that much for a single shadow, which is why I bought this. I also didn't want to pay that much to find out if I like it or not, versus buying it from somebody who just kind of barely used it. So tapping it on with my finger, I am kind of getting some cream just kind of, you know, sticking to my finger, just gotta be careful. And I know not everybody likes clear plastic. I like clear packaging more as a matter of practicality because I have quite the library and I don't want to have to open up everything to see what I'm looking at. I didn't put on like a super intense layer because I was using my finger and I didn't want to rub off all my cream shadow. It doesn't seem to pick up as easily on a brush. Maybe that's how you can shear it out, is by using a brush. It's so pretty though. And then I'm going to put it on my lower lash line. Yeah, it has a more sheer application with the brush, so if I ever wanted to use this more as like a topper, I'll make sure to use a brush. And this is just going to be like a super simple look. And now going back into the Patrick Ta palette, I do want there to be a little bit of dimension, so I am going to go in with the darkest shimmer, and I'm going to use that. I took too much off. I'm gonna use that just out here. And with how tacky my eyelid is, I'm not getting much fallout. And I'm just using that to kind of add some dimension. It would be better if I had a smaller brush. They're all in the wash. After I film this, I'm going to be spending all afternoon working on getting those brushes cleaned. Trying to make sure I get an even layer, just because my eyelid's tacky enough that it can apply unevenly if I'm not careful. You can kind of see that it's a little bit uneven. And then I'll use a matte shadow later, that should help too. Doing this just makes me want that Gemini 2 palette. I did see that it was 30% off the bundle with it and the original Gemini, which I actually got rid of, but I got rid of it and I have been kind of regretting that, but then I just got really busy and forgot to buy it, and so of course the deal was one day only and I missed out, so I don't really want to pay full price for it, so I'm just gonna wait for something like that to happen again. I don't know if it will. It was their birthday sale. Okay, I think I did a better job with the other eye because I switched to a different brush. Okay, and then I'm going to take another clean brush and I'm going to use this matte right here, and I'm just going to make sure everything is blended and set. It is kind of also adding some additional color too. I don't know if I necessarily wanted that, but here we are. It's a little too late to change that. I probably should have just used like a translucent powder or something. I don't really think I did the best job pulling off what I wanted, but that's okay. I'm gonna go back in with more Wish because it got a little bit lost. Just make sure that it's a little bit more visible. It is so pretty. Alright, and I'm just very quickly going to use a translucent powder and see if I can't get rid of this weird kind of uneven patchiness that's bothering me on this eyelid. Like, can you see? It's just bothering me. This look kind of ended up being a mess. What can I do? This is what I'm stuck with. But now I don't really want to film another video after this because this look is so disappointing, so I might just wash it off and then put on something else. Which is a shame because I just went through all that effort to put on my sunscreen. Well, I'll see what I can do to salvage this, but in the meantime I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna do my lashes off camera, kind of just gather my thoughts, see if I can salvage this a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, the eyes are on. It took me a little longer than I expected to finish things because I got interrupted by one of the kittens kind of sort of spilling water everywhere and I had to go mop that all up, but we're back. And I did end up putting a little bit more Wish on. I also put on some brown liner, and I also put the brown liner on the inner corners using my Benefit liner, and then I put on Ardell 815, and I think that more or less is going to rescue this look from the pits because I really did not want to have to film another look today, so I think this will be good. Overall it looks nice, honestly. I cannot complain, and I think once I add a little bit of highlighter up here, that should kind of help further conceal any mishaps that I kind of had thought were up there. So I also drew some fake lower lashes just kind of on my outer corners as usual because I have no lashes. I think it'll be a good match for me to use kind of some of the shades in here. I think I'm going to use this shade. This is the Moon Prism blush palette. So I'm going to use the shade Stargaze. I didn't want anything too bronze or too pink. I kind of wanted something right in the middle. I do definitely want his new collection. I just haven't had the funds yet. And I'm not really trying to be too specific with it today. I'm not really wrapping it anywhere. I'm just kind of sticking it right here, right on my cheekbones, which is where my favorite kind of default location is, as opposed to like the apples or something. So that's good as a base shade, and as you can see, it's dark and it probably needs a little TLC, so I'm going to go into Pink Moon, and I'm going to use Pink Moon to kind of just make sure it's nice and diffused. And Pink Moon is a lot lighter. I do really want the Flower Nose new blushes for that purpose, but I do also still have my Peri Para one, so I don't want to be too redundant, but at the same time I really like Flower Nose packaging, so I'm just kind of waiting to have room in my budget. I wish I could just buy things on release, but that's just not the reality for most of us. Okay, so with Pink Moon, I was thinking of Strawberry Dreams. With Pink Moon, I was able to blend it out a little bit more. The blush is still on the heavy side, but like I pretty much always have heavy blush, so what's new there? And then I'm gonna add a little bit of warmth to my face. Now, as I mentioned before, my foundation was a little bit dark and then I brightened it up, so I'm going to use the lighter shades of contour over here, and I don't want to be too crazy because I don't want to undo all of my hard work, but I just need a little bit of kind of extra something on the outer part of my face, so I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of this. How that's looking, and then I'm going to go into the white to really just make sure the blush is blended on the inner part of my face. Okay, so all things considered, things did eventually come together. It got a little bit crazy, but I think first off, lashes can save anything, and in the end my complexion actually turned out really nice because I was able to brighten up the center and kind of go back to my neck. So I'm so far actually pretty happy with how this all turned out. So I'm going to move on to highlighter, and I'm going to use an oldie but a goodie. I haven't broke this out on camera in a really long time, but this is going to be the JACLYN highlighter palette. Now I believe all of these are available as singles. It's just the palette that's no longer available, so you know, don't sweat it if you can't get the palette. I do know the palette sells for a lot these days on like used sites. Given that it's available as singles, it's not necessarily like totally unavailable. And I just used the shade Gleam. I applied a very sheer layer. I'm not going super heavy. And then I'm going to take that also on my brow arch area. And then I'll just dump a tiny bit on my nose bridge just to elevate my nose bridge, and then a tiny bit on my nose tip. Yeah, I really like that highlighter palette and I'm very glad I was able to eventually get my hands on it, and I got it on sale. One of the only times where I actually got pretty lucky in that regard. Okay, so I'm going to use M Cosmetics Fawn. I'm really trying my best to do things on camera. I keep doing my lips off camera, but I'll try to stay in the frame. I wanted to do a matte lip, but well, I'll try it. What's the worst that can happen? I finally got my hand on the shade Rosiential from the Roman Blur Fudge tint line. I've been trying to get my hands on this for probably 4 or 5 months now. It's one of the shades Minsko developed with Roman, and I am so excited to finally try this. I think this should match. Yep, there we go. Yep, this is definitely a Minsko shade. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. No wonder this shade has been so hard to find. Okay, yeah. Best one ever. I can see why she made this shade. This is so good. Okay, I'm so glad I have this shade now. I predict I will use it too much. Okay, my hair is gnarly, but it's summer, so you'll just have to excuse it. So this is gonna be the finished look, just with my boring hair that looks the same all the time. I'm lazy. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching me try to pull this look together. I was trying to go for something super simple, but of course I ended up overcomplicating things, as I always do. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching, maybe enjoyed kind of seeing how I rebound from potential problems, which happens to me all the time. And in the meantime, please, as always, leave any video suggestions down in the comments. I always read through them all, and if you think I forgot, just leave it again. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.